You felt it, haven't you? Maybe not in words, but as a dull ache beneath your skin, a quiet unrest in the pit of your stomach that flares up when the world goes still. Late at night, when you're staring at the ceiling, too exhausted to move but too restless to sleep. In the car, surrounded by gray buildings and red brake lights, where every minute feels stolen and every destination feels empty. There's this sense, subtle but constant, that something is deeply wrong. You don't always speak it out loud, maybe you don't even know how to, but it gnaws at you just the same. Why do some people seem born into the throne, while others are shackled from the moment they take their first breath? Why does effort so rarely lead to elevation? Why does morality feel like a currency that never converts? You've played by the rules, you've sacrificed, you've been told that patience, honesty, and perseverance would one day lead to freedom. But instead, you find yourself chained to routines, bound to bills, surrounded by a society addicted to distraction and drowning in debt. And here's the part they never say out loud. It's not your fault, but it is now your responsibility, because the illusion has a crack in it and you've started to see through. That itch in your mind, that is your intellect scratching against the lie that the system is fair, that hard work pays off, that goodness is rewarded. But the truth is far less poetic and far more dangerous. This system is not broken, it was engineered to exploit obedience, to harvest energy, to reward silence. What you call a society is a machine, and you are its fuel. That sinking feeling in your gut is the price of playing a game you were never taught the rules to. A game where wealth doesn't reward virtue, it gravitates toward leverage, toward strategy, toward those who understand that power isn't inherited, it's constructed, brick by calculated brick, on the backs of those who refuse to see it. What you're about to hear isn't encouragement. It's not a sweet little sermon telling you to just keep going and stay positive. This is the opposite. This is an autopsy of the system that feeds on your potential. This is a guided descent into the mechanics of manipulation, the architecture of control. It will not soothe you. It will not flatter you. It will challenge the very identity you've wrapped around yourself. But if you're brave enough, ruthless enough to let this truth sink in, something ancient will wake inside of you. Something that's been buried under decades of programming. Something hungry, something silent, something sharp. And once it wakes, it cannot go back to sleep. Because now you've seen the first glimpse of reality, and reality doesn't apologize. It doesn't ask for permission. It doesn't care how you feel. It only waits to see one thing. Will you adapt, or will you be devoured? Most people walk through life hypnotized by a lie, that the world is governed by intelligence, that the smartest rise to the top, that merit is the ladder to freedom. Others cling to luck, imagining that timing or fate or some cosmic coincidence will lift them above the grind. They believe wealth is a windfall, a lottery ticket waiting to be scratched if they just keep working, keep waiting, keep dreaming. But if that were true, if intelligence alone held the key, then every library would be filled with billionaires, and every cemetery wouldn't be overflowing with nameless geniuses who died poor, unheard, forgotten. Look closer. Strip away the fantasy. The truth is far less romantic and far more brutal. Wealth doesn't follow intelligence. It follows structure. It follows strategy. It follows power.
And power doesn't emerge from being good. It emerges from understanding, from knowing how systems operate, how people fail, how the very weaknesses we hide beneath politeness and professionalism are actually the strings by which most are pulled. Power belongs to those who study the field like a battlefield, not a playground. To those who observe when others speak, who stay cold while others burn with emotion, who strike while others are still hoping someone else will save them. You see, real philosophy, true philosophy, is not academic fluff confined to university walls or coffee shop debates. It is not a study of thought for thought's sake. It is the blueprint for control. It is the architecture of dominance. Philosophy, in its rawest form, is the art of mastering the unseen forces, your own instincts, your perception of the world, and the psychological levers buried in the minds of everyone around you. This isn't about sounding wise, it's about becoming dangerous. But to wield that kind of clarity, you must begin with the most violent act of all, the symbolic execution of your former self. No, not in flesh, in belief, in expectation, in identity. You must assassinate the soft, obedient version of you, the one who still believes that life is fair, that goodness is rewarded, that if you're just patient and kind, the world will eventually repay you. That voice in your head telling you to be humble, to trust the process, to wait your turn. That voice is the collar around your neck. And as long as it whispers, you are not free. You are domesticated. Burn it. Because once that voice dies, once you stop looking for fairness and start looking for leverage, the world starts to sharpen. It doesn't become easier, it becomes visible. You begin to see the invisible architecture of society not as a structure built to uplift you, but as a machine designed to extract from you your hours, your focus, your hope, your submission. It feeds on your faith. It monetizes your distraction. It multiplies off your uncertainty. Every ad you see, every trend you follow, every fear you feed, it all becomes fuel for something bigger than you, something hungrier. And here's the truth most cannot stomach. Your emotions are not private. Your reactions are not invisible. They are broadcast signals. And those with eyes to see, those who understand the game, can read you like scripture. Fear, hesitation, envy, guilt, they can smell it on you. They don't need to manipulate you directly. You do it to yourself, because you were taught to emote before you think, to obey before you question, to feel before you calculate. The strong, they don't move that way. They don't operate on impulse. They don't hope. They engineer. They design outcomes. They study weakness not with judgment, but with purpose. They don't ask, is this fair? They ask, does this work? Morality is secondary. Effectiveness is king. So ask yourself, Are you still waiting for someone to notice how hard you're trying? Are you still praying that your honesty will earn you a seat at the table? If so, understand this. You are not being ignored. You are being harvested. There is no seat. There is only the table and the ones who own it. Everyone else, they are on the menu. Take a hard look around you, not a glance, not a passing stare. Really look. What do you see? People rushing through life, faces tired, eyes dim, hearts heavy. They cling to the illusion that they are doing everything right. They wake up to alarms that feel like shackles. They drag themselves into jobs that drain more than they give. They stash away scraps of money like squirrels hiding acorns, hoping it will one day buy them freedom. They follow rules written in bold ink, rules carved out by people who never intended to follow them in the first place. And still, they obey. They obey because they think obedience makes them virtuous. They obey because they believe safety lies in conformity. They obey because they confuse silence with peace, when really it is surrender.
Watch them closely. The smiles that don't reach their eyes, the polite nods masking exhaustion, the way their backs bend beneath invisible chains. These chains are not made of iron, but of belief. Belief that safety exists. But safety is a myth, a comforting story, a nursery rhyme for adults. It is nothing but a cage dressed as sanctuary, a prison disguised as protection. And in this world, whether you want to admit it or not, you are either prey or predator. Not in the way Hollywood sells it, not with guns and explosions, but in the quiet, philosophical sense, in the subtle wars of power, in the way you stand when chaos surrounds you, in the choices you make when your emotions scream louder than your mind. Because here's the truth, either your mind governs your emotions or your emotions govern you. And once you lose command of yourself, you're already prey. Now, contrast that with the few, the rich, the powerful, the untouchables. They live in another realm entirely. They don't fumble for words. They don't reveal everything they think or feel. They don't move like the rest of the herd. Their presence is heavy, deliberate, measured. Notice their silence. It doesn't signal weakness. It radiates power. It radiates pressure. It radiates a kind of dominance that needs no shouting, no noise, no desperate explanations. And here's where the crack begins to show. Ordinary people cannot survive silence. It unsettles them. It gnaws at them. They scramble to fill it with nervous laughter, with long-winded justifications, with empty chatter. They beg the silence to end. But when you master silence, when you hold it steady, when your presence alone tightens the air in the room, something extraordinary happens. You become the axis around which others spin. People reveal themselves without realizing it. They hand you information you never asked for. They make concessions you never demanded. They expose vulnerabilities you never forced out of them. And they do it not because you applied pressure. No, they do it because you didn't need to. This is the first step in breaking free from the herd. But silence, as powerful as it is only the surface. Beneath it lies something even more dangerous: stillness. Not laziness, not apathy, stillness. The discipline to detach from impulse, to resist the knee-jerk reactions that expose your weaknesses. Because the moment you are emotionally legible, you are already owned. If your fear shows, someone will feed it. If your greed shows, someone will bait it. If your insecurity shows, someone will weaponize it. Most people are walking broadcasts, leaking signals they don't even realize they're sending.
Their anxiety radiates before they speak. Their desperation lingers in every gesture. Their thoughts scream louder than their words. But those who rise higher, the wealthy, the powerful, the elusive, they master unreadability. They become mirrors that give nothing back. They train themselves to respond with calculation rather than react with impulse. They sharpen themselves into blades, silent, empty, cold, and precise. No tells, no cracks, no leaks, just pure strategy. And while the crowd lunges at every shiny opportunity, praying that one might change their life, the wise do the opposite. They wait, they stalk, they let chaos ripen, and then strike with surgical precision, like a predator crouched in tall grass. Understand this. Waiting is not weakness. It is timing, and timing is the highest form of dominance. The herd chases pleasure because they think pleasure equals life, but the elite chase leverage because leverage equals control. And leverage has nothing to do with working harder. It's about engineering circumstances so that others do the work for you, while you collect the gain. Most people think their job pays them for effort. No, effort is cheap. They are paid for obedience, for compliance, for silence. Their real labor is harvested by the one who profits off them, not the one who pats them on the back. Until you see this, you will remain trapped in the illusion. Because value, like water, always flows upward, unless you reverse the current. Unless you build your own system, networks, processes, stories that make other people's energy, attention, and labor pour into you instead of draining from you.
And this is where philosophy stops being abstract and starts becoming a weapon. Once you realize reality isn't fixed but filtered, you understand the game. Most people live inside stories handed to them. Stories about success, about morality, about money, about who deserves what. But stories are not reality. They are illusions, and illusions can be rewritten. That is why the masters of this world don't just build companies, they build myths. They don't just lead nations, they craft narratives. They don't just sell products, they sell meaning. Brands, religions, governments, markets, these are not material things. They are collective hallucinations, held in place by belief. Whoever controls the illusion controls the crowd. And here is the brutal truth. Reality does not bend to what is real, it bends to what is perceived. A man who rejects illusion because it insults his sense of honesty may feel righteous, but righteousness will not protect him. He will starve in silence, his truth unheard, because the world does not reward truth. The world rewards the ones who engineer belief. And when you grasp this, the laws of power begin to stack. Silence, stillness, patience, leverage, illusion. Then comes the final law, exploitation. Not in the cruel, cartoonish sense, in the raw, unblinking sense of using what others waste. Time, attention, fear. These resources spill from the masses every second of every day. They drop them like coins slipping through broken pockets. The predator does not moralize about it. He collects, he converts, he compounds, he grows. Even mastery demands caution. Power is not a toy you pick up and never put down. It is a razor that will cut you if you handle it without care. To carry it without being carved by it, you must cultivate restraint. a practiced withholding that begins with yourself. This is not asceticism for its own sake. It is not martyrdom. Discipline is not denial. It is sovereignty. The man who cannot delay pleasure, who must satisfy every itch the moment it appears, hands his future to impulse. He will be consumed by wealth the moment it arrives, because he never learned how to hold it. The man who must always speak, always explain, always arrange his face for approval will never inspire fear. He will be liked, nodded at, forgotten. And remember, popularity is applause. Fear is currency. Applause buys you a moment. Fear buys you the room. So you begin to move on a different axis. Your speech becomes measured. Your words are fewer, but each carries intent. Your plans lengthen. You build chessboards while others throw together piles of pieces. You observe where many perform. You plant questions instead of answers and wait for the soil to tell you what will grow. When you stop reacting to every stimulus, the world strangely, inevitably, begins to rearrange itself around your new posture. Doors that were once invisible slide open, not because they suddenly existed, but because you now notice the seams where movement is possible. You have withdrawn from the broadcast of the crowd. You are no longer tugged by every siren. You stop chasing like a dog after scraps. Instead, you engineer momentum that pulls toward you.
This is the great inversion. You stop pursuing success and begin designing gravity. You become an attractor. Success no longer needs to be hunted. It falls into your orbit because you have created fields that make things move toward you. This is not mere mindset trickery. It becomes metaphysical. Your demeanor, your schedule, your silence, your choices, all of it bends probability. You step off the conveyor belt and stand at the levers. You are no longer a cog. You are the one who times the machine. While the masses sprint after the newest fad, you court what lasts. While they fight to be right, you position to be consequential. While they fear solitude and seek crowds to validate them, you use solitude like whetstone, sharpening your edges so you cut cleanly when the moment demands. And then something curious and inevitable occurs. You stop reacting with rage or envy when people play their parts. You watch them with a kind of clinical clarity. Their words become transparent, triggers, rehearsed scripts, the same old pleas dressed in new clothes. You do not despise them. You simply no longer confuse their noise for your life. You have become the outsider, the observer who still breathes the same air but does not wear the same chains. That distance gives you design. It gives you the map others refuse to see. They will not anticipate you because you have abandoned the desperate mechanics of begging to be seen. You are no longer shouting for attention. You move in quiet that demands obedience. Your whisper is structural. It induces action without force. When the room leans toward you, it is because you learned to withhold until withholding became power, and because you learned that the greatest control is not taken by force, but given in pieces to the patient hand that asked for nothing and received everything.